What is tawheed in three categories? The tawheed in its origin and its asl. That if you go to the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and especially towards the book of Allah, let's focus upon the book of Allah. That as it relates to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are only three types of verses as it relates to Allah. There are only three types I didn't say three verses, three types of verses. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, if not thousands of them. That with respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, three categories. Either they will talk about the actions of Allah. Ya ayyuhan nasu u'badu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum walladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O mankind, worship your guardian Lord who created you. So here we're talking about an action of Allah. Alladhi ja'ala lakum al-arda firasha was-samaa'a binaa'a, up until the end of the ayah. The one who made for you the sky as a canopy and the earth as a resting place. The one who sends down the rain and brings out the crops of the earth. So these are related to what? The actions of Allah. The one who gives life, the one who gives death. So that's the first type of verse in the Quran as it relates to Allah. They are known as the verses that mention the ifradullah bi af'alihi. That they single out Allah, that He is the creator of these things and no one shares with Him in that. Understood? That's the first type of verse. The second type of verse in the Quran is related to the asma'i was sifat. That they mention the names and the qualities of Allah. The names and the attributes of Allah. Such as, for example, when you open up the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha begins with Bismillah. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Two names of Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. So these verses are regarded to be the names or verses that mention the names and the attributes of Allah. Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. Ar-Rahim, the bestower of mercy. And the attribute that carries of mercy. So this is now Allah describing Himself. Allah is describing Himself here. Likewise, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes Himself in the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that everything will perish except for the face of Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned information about Himself, names and attributes. Like for example in the verse, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. And to Allah belong the most beautiful names. So call upon Him by way of them. So that's the second type of verse, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions something about Himself, His names or His attributes. So information about Himself. And the third type or the category that is mentioned in the Quran as it relates to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ibadah, is worship. As in the verse that we mentioned, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, Ya ayyuhan nasu u'badu rabbakum. O mankind, worship your guardian Lord. Or as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, where Allah Jalla wa ala has mentioned, worship me, وَلَا تُشْرِكُ بِي شَيْئًا. Worship me and do not associate any partners with me. So these are verses, or when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions with regard to sacrifice, or making nadhr, or making isti'ana, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Only you do we worship, and only your assistance do we seek. This is now entering into ibadah. Or when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ وَاشْكُرُوا لِي وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, remember me. Remember me, and I will remember you. Thank me, and do not disbelieve in me. This is now related to the worship. Outside of these three, there is no fourth category that is mentioned in the Quran. If you know of one, put your hand up. Fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. No problem. If you know of one, mention it. The scholars have united that apart from these three categories, with respect to Allah in the Quran, there is no fourth category. Some of the early scholars, they mention that there are two categories. But those two categories are the same as these three. Because one of them combines the actions with the names and attributes of Allah. Or the names and attributes of Allah with worship. The tawheed of ma'rifah wa talab. That the tawheed of knowing Allah and the tawheed of seeking from Allah or ibadah, making ibadah of Allah. But nevertheless, outside of these three categories, there is no fourth category. There is no